Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And welcome to another happy hour. If you are partaking in drinks or whatever you are doing at this moment, do it with caution / care / self-preservation and responsibly, obviously. Mm-hmm. If we speak of anything such as a brand or a name, not necessarily a sponsor. No. Who knows? Maybe one day, maybe not. Maybe we're calling them out and they'll never ask us to be
They're not currently a sponsor. And if they were, we would say it because we would get sued. So
right. And we would get fined and we don't get paid enough for that. The company might be okay. We are not. No. But anyway, outside of that, Anney, are you drinking something right now?
Red wine.
Red wine. No cider today?
No, I'm done with the cider. The cider is officially gone. Yeah, it was nice while it lasted, but you know. It
was nice while it lasted.
Yeah.
I am sticking with water today. Because I am already sleepy. I'm a little I think it's just a constant thing of me being sleepy. Mm-hmm. We've already talked about this. And today's happy hour is just going to be a and wine. So I really should have had a wine. So it's going to be a and water for me and wine as you listen.
Okay.
But there's several things. Update, first and foremost, Peaches has gotten her stitches removed and she's doing very well. We got her test result back for her giant mass, and it is nothing more than fatty tissues, essentially, that just doesn't spread necessarily, just, grows in that spot area, kind of the best case scenario. Mm-hmm. So that's the good news.
Yay.
She was a bit of a mess because we went this morning, actually, to get this morning being the day we record, which is November 16th, to get her stitches removed, and she was a mess. That was a whole thing, but she didn't have to be sedated. So that was the good news. Mm-hmm. And she got it done. She's home, and she's happy-ish. She's definitely not the most happy because she's like, what the hell was that? Hates the vet. Tries to run out the door every time. Mm-hmm. But she did it. So she was okay. Not good, but okay. Mm-hmm. Give her that. So that's well. Game, y'all, this game that I talked about previously that I whined about, I just got scammed for the first time.
No.
And it made me sad. It physically made me sad that it still kind of affects my mood right now. I think I might be high anxious right now, but I was just I almost I looked at my partner and I was like, that made me so sad to the point that he kind of got concerned.
Yeah.
Are you going to be okay? They're not nice people in this place. It's just a game. I don't understand. It's okay. I'm fine. I wanted to kind of take a moment about that. But with that high anxiety and stress, I've noticed, as we talked about previously on one of your happy hours, that lingering anxiety that carries over where you start overthinking and then it just affects everything else. I did all of these things wrong, and then you start really analyzing about all the bad things that you've done in life and or recently and or things falling apart, and then predicting everything's going to fall apart. That's kind of where I am, and it happened immediately after the time change. Immediately.
Oh, really?
It was so immediate. The darkness, it felt like it fell on my soul, Anney. It fell on my soul, okay? I was at least distracted for a second by all these different things, the surgery, which, at least I was busy. And I'm still kind of busy because we're planning to travel to Charleston to see my partner's family for Thanksgiving. We're switching it up this year and doing Thanksgiving with his family, Christmas with mine, which, y'all, this has become a thing, and it's really, really stressful because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You want to be where you're more comfortable, but then you have obligations, so you don't neglect somebody. My family, I've talked about previously that my brother got remarried to a woman who is very nice. They're very happy, but they have 5 additional kids. They're all under the age of 12. And that's a lot. That's a lot to add to a household that already has a lot of children. And then we're talking about how to buy presents because, immediately it's about the commercial aspect of it all. And at the same time, I'm I want these children, whom I don't know really well, I met once, to have a great Christmas and have a great experience. And part of that is opening gifts. And because there's so many, our households, maybe they should draw names, which is fair and all of that. But then my older nieces and nephew, and I swore I would never be this person because I watched these K-dramas and I'm why would you treat any of them differently? The step children or the step nieces or the ones that are like I didn't see growing up or any of that, that I would treat them the same. But I kind of don't. And I realized, I'm like, wow, that's not necessarily nice. But part of the thing is like I never got to give gifts to the nieces and nephew that I did see grow up. I didn't make enough money to give them like the gifts that I would love to give in until just recently. And now they're all like graduated from high school and grown, but I'm like, I now have the opportunity to give you something. And I remember immediately between high school and college and right after college being completely broke. I mean, up until like 2 years ago, being completely broke, you know, like, and hoping that my aunt or my uncle or someone would give me the extra $20 for Christmas so that I could, you know, afford to do some things or maybe even help pay the bills. And so like, I really feel that and I want to give that to them. But then I feel like it's unfair for me to give them that and then not give the young children who are just coming into the family, who they are family now, but I still can't quite grasp that because I have not seen them. Can't remember their names. Like that's like I'm gonna have to ask somebody, my family, what their names are again. And my older brother got married several years ago, so many years ago, and she had 2 children who now they are married and they have kids. I can't remember any of their names either.
I hear you.
There's so much that I'm like, the level of like trying to keep up. And I hate that level. Like I feel like I have favoritism. I'm not trying to favor anymore. It's just like I'm just know these 4 versus the rest of them, which I moved away and don't see except for family occasions, and because I'm very uncomfortable because of our differences and being adopted and all these different things, that it's just awkward. That I don't know what to do about all of this. So these levels of stress. And then we got the other side where, you know, my partner, and it's just his 2 other siblings. There's no additions. Neither one of them are married. Neither one of them currently are in a relationship. Maybe they are. Not that I know of. I'm the kind of like, for all, you know, intent and purposes, the in-law, I guess, that's come along, that celebrates with them. He is the oldest, my partner, so I'm even older than him. But all of that to say is like I'm the first to be a part of the family traditions with them. And they do a good job because the parents are actually divorced. His parents are divorced, but they agreed a little while ago that they could do holidays together so they don't have to separate it. So that's lovely to see. And it is more enjoyable and more relaxing and less stressful to me, obviously. So this level of like, okay, we have to split these. We have to see where we want to go. I can't neglect my family, my own family, even though, honestly, I wish I could avoid it. I hope none of my family listens to this. But all of that on top of, I've never liked the holidays. It wasn't a thing to me growing until I came into the U.S. So I found that odd. I found that level of like, I was excited, but at the same time, like thinking that it would go away at any moment. As well as the fact that in comparison to what other kids had, it was like my parents did an amazing job. Don't get me wrong, in making it amazing. But like, you know, the differences with the kids who were probably less happy, but with more stuff felt different. Like the differences growing up and trying to figure out what this was, why didn't this exist before when I was really having a hard time and never had toys to begin with, to this. To like trying to sustain some semblance of sanity around my family as we disagreed or argued or whatever, whatnot, whether it was because I wasn't married or whether because, you know, I was too liberal or all of these things, or at one point I was too religious. Like it was just constant. And now to this being adulthood and being nice to each other, but at the same time navigating new family members and trying to be kind and considerate on one and not hurting anybody's feelings. It's a mess. And I'm not even in charge of anything. And we've talked about that previously, obviously, a few times. So right now, like everything feels like chaos. I feel like I'm saying, but at the same time, I'm also very sad and sleepy. and busy. And we're trying to get so much done. A peek behind the curtains in such a small amount of time, so we can have days off. When I say days off, just not recording or not researching and just being somewhere, or being like, I will be driving 6 hours one way, so 12 hours of that time is just traveling. So all of that is a lot. And I'm trying to navigate that space again. And I know we talk about this every year, but it just is a constant. It's a constant battle. And then, as I keep getting older, I feel like disappointed. I feel disappointed that it's not more settled. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I know we talked about this recently, I think in my Life Day episode. But there's when you're a kid, there's stress around all of this stuff, certainly. But when you get older, you're like, oh God, the holidays move from like, oh, fun time to, oh God. And then I feel like everyone is acknowledging now in commercials even that it's so stressful. And it feels like, and I've been thinking about this recently with the pandemic and how, because I'm going to be wearing the same sweater I wear every year on Life Day tomorrow, and I'm going to be doing the same thing. And I was like, I kept feeling about the pandemic, well, in the next year, this will get better. Well, in the next year, this will get better. Well, in the next year. And then things just don't feel like they're getting better at all, not just in the pandemic, but generally. And I feel that too, of like, I was hoping that one day, because my family, I'm very lucky that we agree politically on most things, but somehow we still fight. Somehow we still fight. And I love seeing my mom, and I love hanging out with my mom. And it's really nice she has like a really nice yard. And I just like sitting outside, and it's nice. I don't have that here. But it's also true. And I was trying to look into this the other day that, like, I have many great memories there, but I have many bad memories there. So it's like,
right.
I wish I too had been hoping for a point when that wouldn't be like, maybe it was still there, but it wouldn't be the thing that I'm like anxious weeks ahead of time about.
Right.
That it would have kind of eased up a little bit or something.
Yeah. At what point does it feel like you were coming into that friendly Folgers commercial hug to your family? When does that happen?
Right.
And I have to recognize on top of this, with all of the things that are happening around the world, the guilt / the privilege in this conversation of seeing family, of going traveling, of being able to free to move, of being alive, of being in somewhat peace situation, that it's hard to understand what's happening and how trivial what we're talking about, and feeling guilty for that too. Like, I don't. We should. I mean, let's just be very clear. That is humanity. That's what you as a human, as a person, as someone with feelings should feel. I know that sounds odd as we talk about self-care, but at the same time, you can't let go of that, because that is inhumane. To be able to do that, there is something, if you think that that's that easy, you should reconsider what you're paying attention to. I think that's the best way to say it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying wallow. I'm not saying despair. I'm not saying, harm yourself in any way. But we have to recognize that that's still going on and things are happening, as well as the fact that Thanksgiving is racist, just racist. Like, I'm like, we should not do this. But at the same time, like, there's a piece that we have to hold with family, and we do want to see family. These are the opportunities. My partner's sister is a teacher. She gets this time off. She gets to see her family, and they are very close, and they want to see each other. Like, things like that exists. And this institution is upheld by a racist situation. So we have to acknowledge that, and what we're doing is racist. Like, I'm gonna acknowledge it. There's this conversation of like what best to do. The 23rd will be the National Day of Mourning. I believe there's like things that you could read, things that you can watch to at least acknowledge and to educate yourself, educate ourselves on that. So there's that level too. There's so many levels to this of like you can't not face it. Pretending like it doesn't exist is not helping anyone. Is there a way to, as an individual, solve it? I don't know. Like there's so many things that we could help do. We talked about like one of the biggest things is witnessing and acknowledging that it's happening. That has to be something that we do as well, so we don't forget. Also, so we don't allow for propaganda to overtake what is actually happening. There are so many things, y'all, that it just feels heavy. It feels so heavy. And I think that's part of my problem is acknowledging and understanding some of that heaviness coming from literally orphanage to this will never leave me, which is why I always feel guilty that I'm not grateful for something and that I'm not contributing to something on a bigger scale. Like at least when I was doing social work, I felt like I was sacrificing a bit of my physical and mental health for something, and it felt right. But looking back on it, I'm like, it was still the wrong way. Like it was still the wrong way. Like it just, like I feel like I fed into a system that did not help. I may have helped individual families because I was able to at least stop the system for them and some of the kids, but I also upheld some of the systems for kids because I didn't know what else to do. Like it's just, there's so much to this that like, it just feels like the added guilt of like, I should not be doing this because it does uphold a racist system. But at the same time, like, what battles do I choose and how do I acknowledge it? And all of that feels so heavy. And I say this again in a privileged situation where I'm sitting in a booth talking into a computer, getting paid. Like there's so many things to that. And I'm like, I know this is outside of like where you see people literally setting themselves on fire to try to bring attention to a conflict that is happening around the world, the genocide that is happening around the world, the constant wars and battles and death and sickness and like all those things. And that's even happening in our backyards, the shootings, the deaths, the women being denied access, all of these things. There's so much that it feels overwhelming. Like as I'm talking to you, like I'm overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that it just feels hard. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I know it's supposed to be. Mm. So where is that balance? And that's, I don't think that's ever going to be really figured out. Mm-hmm. Without also trying not to be the woe of the world type of person. Mm-hmm. That is just, it's a lot. It's a lot. And for the holidays, I feel like it gets compacted into even more.
It does. I think it does. Because there's a pressure for a lot of people. It's supposed to be like a good time, but then you put that pressure on there. And then it's like, and you don't see these people all the time, or at least in my case. Right. I'm always interested when I talk to friends where it's not this situation for them. And I think part of it is they just see their family a lot. So it's a much more like, just have a slightly bigger meal than we normally would have.
Right.
But it really is, I think there's a lot of stuff around why it is stressful for so many people. And I will say for me, my mom is fine. She has COVID. Supposedly will be fine by then, I guess. Hopefully. But my older brother got in a fight. So he's not coming, which is fine. Like, I mean, it's not great, but it's like, it's just going to be the thing hanging over it is like, he's not there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that I'm like upset.
Yeah.
I'm sad I won't see him, but it's not like I'm like, oh God, but it's just going to be hanging over the whole thing.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have situations like that in their families. Yeah.
Right. Right. I mean, I think they're definitely in similar situations as us, especially as myself, about the conflict between our families, trying to really navigate this time to being conscientious. Like, being conscientious is the key of all of this. I'm not telling you to be crying all the time about it, but again, like, there's this awareness that we have to be fully awake to. And I think that's also that level. I am not fun at parties. We'll just say that, so don't invite me. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be that. And, you know, I do want to say I am thankful for so many things. But again, like, this holiday that we're, as you're listening, if you're listening on the day that this is released, it's racist. So trying not to acknowledge that is not the answer either. So all these things, we will tell you this. I'm very, very thankful that we do have this platform. Very grateful that we have listeners who understand this conversation and understand it to the core. And we want to acknowledge that there's so much privilege in everything that we've talked about. And it's to the point that it gets tiresome. We know. But for those who are struggling, we also see you. Like, I think that's the biggest key to this, is that we see you. And we won't stop talking about it. And if we seem like we're lacking in something, please let us know, because we never, ever, ever, ever want to be the hosts that can't see beyond our own experiences. That would be the biggest, I think, like, straw in the back for me to be like, okay, that's it, I quit. I quit everything. If that was the case, that we can't, or we don't acknowledge, or we don't talk about, or we ignore the bigger conversations, or some of the things that we might not feel today ourselves in our small corner over here. But that fact that we are witnessing, and we are witness to what is happening.
Yes. Well, cheers.
I'm sorry, cheers. This is why I wine.
That's all right. It's, unnecessary. I haven't spoken to my mom about the book yet, but
good update.
She did say that she learned a lot about intersectional feminism from it. So I
love it.
I think that,
success.
It's good to know that we're still reaching people and still hopefully doing something. Yes. Well, listeners, whatever you're doing, we hope that you're well. And as always, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at stephanieandmomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff Mom Never Told You. We have a TeePublic store, and yes, we do have a book that you can get wherever you get your books. Thank you to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff Mom Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts on iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.